Hamilton City is based in the North Island of New Zealand. Smart Hamilton is the city's smart city program, and the Hamilton City Council has been charged with the responsibility of executing the Smart Hamilton program in partnership with the community. Today we have with us Sean Hickey, the General Manager of Strategy and Communications of the Hamilton City Council, to discuss with us the role of the Hamilton City Council, the vision and the aspirations. Thanks for taking the time to be with us, Sean.
Thank you, Chris.
Sean, our participants of this course are likely to be domestic as well as international. So it would be useful for those who are not familiar with Hamilton for you to just set the context around Hamilton.
Sure. So Hamilton, as you've said, is in the sort of about 2 hours from Auckland. It's in the sort of geographically what we like to call the Golden Triangle with Tauranga, Auckland and Hamilton. So geographically there's a lot of advantages to that in terms of its location. One of the fastest growing cities in New Zealand, huge potential, a lot of migration from Auckland but also internationally. One of the youngest populations in New Zealand, also one of the fastest growing tech sectors in the country. There's a lot of, potential in Hamilton. How we sort of manage that growth in a sustainable way has been one of the biggest challenges for Hamilton over the last few years and will continue to be so. So we see the Smart Hamilton philosophy and program as being a key way to embrace those opportunities and to solve some of the challenges.
Mm-hmm. So what is the role of the Hamilton City Council in this context?
So our role is an interesting one, and I think our role is evolving. We're sort of working out what that role is as well. I think traditionally our council has been decision maker, a doer, a provider of services, and I think we're trying to redefine our role now as something more of a facilitator, inspiring change in our communities, enabling our communities and partners to help be part of the change. We have instigated a Smart Hamilton program. We're in the relatively early stages of getting sort of that groundswell of stakeholder and community support and trying to, corral that into something which becomes quite meaningful for the city.
All right. So how important is the role of technology in the context of Smart Hamilton?
I think for those that are familiar with kind of smart cities internationally, it sort of has been born out of technology and leveraging data and technology for more sustainable and livable cities. That was probably at the genesis of our thinking around Smart Hamilton. We've evolved our thinking a bit in terms of what role technology plays. It still is very core to smart cities, but we're also thinking about smart societies, which is a slightly broader view of what a smart city can be. So it's thinking beyond just a technology focus and actually looking at what are the human interactions, how do we engage all people in the community in a more sustainable and more livable city. And technology is an enabler. It's a really significant enabler. It's a means to an end. It's not the end in itself.
Of all the city councils that I've looked at and researched, obviously Hamilton City is the only one that's come across as being the one who's explicitly got smart society as a focus, and smart city is a route to getting to smart society. So why smart societies?
I think it sort of fits with our a broader vision for Hamilton. So we've talked about the purpose of Hamilton City Council being to improve the wellbeing of Hamiltonians. So we've had that at the core of our strategic thinking and our planning for the last 3 or 4 years. It's always sort of probably been in the background, but we've been quite explicit about that in the last 3 years. So that improving the wellbeing of Hamiltonians is pervasive through everything that we do. And we see Smart Hamilton as being one of the, the core strategies or ways of thinking to bring that to life. So that's more than simply a technologically advanced society. It's actually a society in which all people enjoy their current wellbeing, but also a city which is investing in the things which will provide well-being for future generations. And so technology again plays a big part in that, but so do things like protecting our natural environment, the ability of our sort of natural ecosystem to provide for human life for generations to come. So I guess it's probably a more holistic way of thinking around smart.
You talked about the growth in Hamilton and the emergence of new industry as well. So given that growth, given that opportunity, also challenges are also posed very often. And in that context, thinking about the ecosystem over here, working with community, working with stakeholders, how does the City Council look at its role? Does it look at its role as the one that leads in and makes the decision and takes the risk right at the upfront, or is this a collaborative, co-creative approach?
More the latter. We see our role as helping to draw out, the common purpose and goals of those sort of key players in Hamilton. We have initiated things like the Smart Space, which is a physical space in sort of the centre of town, which is a way of drawing people in from the community, from stakeholders, to actually kind of get together and look at and showcase some of the things that are happening in Hamilton, to sort of foster that community conversation, to draw in the community to help us identify what challenges or problems they want solved, and to kind of pair those kind of problems up with solutions from the networks within Hamilton. There are lots of things happening and lots of organisations who all have a role to play in Hamilton. Hamilton City Council is definitely kind of at the centre of a lot of those conversations and that collaboration, co-working kind of approach that we're taking.
So if you had a crystal ball in the next 5 years, what would be your key goals for Smart Hamilton, and what would you like to see achieved?
I'd like to see the network of innovators in Hamilton become a really strong force and be quite a strong public voice. We've got lots of disparate people talking about innovation and smart cities and collaboration, and I think the opportunity is for us to really kind of raise that up to be at the sort of front and centre of the conversations about the future of the city. So almost moving beyond thinking about the future of Hamilton in a spatial sense, as in the physical kind of what does Hamilton physically look like and where are the houses and the buildings and things like that, but actually for that conversation to be around what the society looks like, what the future of Hamilton looks like from a people point of view, and I think that's where I think we'd like to see that. I think we'd like to see some big wins for smart initiatives, because they sort of help build that momentum. Things like LED streetlights, which have been rolled out, are kind of really good, tangible examples that people can see and maybe not quite touch and feel, but certainly experience. Certainly the Internet of Things, greater, democratisation of technology in our society. So more people with access to technology, more of a bottom-up contribution to the future of Hamilton. So citizens being involved in developing, creating solutions. If we sort of take a sort of beyond 5 years vision, Hamilton City Council becomes very much in the background, and it's actually more and more citizen-led.
So is the Smart Hamilton program, or is the City Council looking at benchmarking the Smart City program that's taking shape over here to other councils domestically or internationally?
Yes. More from a learning perspective than anything. So we do look at a number of the international smart cities and programs that rank different cities from a smart point of view. Our observation is that there are a number of larger cities that have significant scale, so London and New York and things like that, where the characteristics of the city are quite different. And so whilst we want to learn from what London does, we're not necessarily seeing ourselves in the same light as London. But equally, there are a number of smaller cities which are doing a lot of smart things. Kigali in Rwanda is one that I think it's 50th on the 50 smartest cities. It sort of surprises a lot of people to think that a city that most people haven't been to probably is not something that sort of rolls off the tongue or people think of commonly, but we sort of look at that and go, actually, what are they doing? Because probably they've got far fewer advantages or opportunities than Hamilton, but they're one of the smartest cities in the world. So we sort of look to learn from international cities, big and small, from right across the world. The benchmarking is useful for helping us to understand what we need to do, but we're not obsessed by a competitive kind of approach to smart cities.
Fantastic. So I guess just as technology innovation and partnerships is sort of the supporting pillar for the Smart Hamilton program, the City Council, if I were to put it bluntly, the City Council sees itself as an enabler within the ecosystem of innovation and Smart Hamilton in this region.
Absolutely.
Which I think is a great outcome for the city. I know from my recent experiences working with some of the international governments that they are looking to New Zealand, particularly in the context of how New Zealand is using local governments to engage with the community and using technology aspects. So as a last question, is there a message that you would want to relate to folks sitting on the other side of the world who are looking at starting off smart city programs in their cities, given your experience in Hamilton?
Look, I think we are relatively new to smart cities as well. So I think what we have learned is actually getting people who are passionate about smart cities is key. Learning from the smart city community is really vital. We didn't know much beyond what the smart city concept was when we sort of set out, and we are learning all the time. I think the opportunity to learn from others is key. Most cities aren't really competing with each other, and so the opportunity for learning in the smart city community is actually really strong. People collaborate and share ideas all the time. So I think if there are people, like say, on the other side of the world who are looking to learn from New Zealand, then I would suggest that getting on the email, picking up the phone, sort of coming to visit are all kind of really good ways to sort of see what others do. And there are lots of opportunities to do that here and around the world.
Fantastic. So I guess the message is to keep an open mind, share and collaborate. And if you do get a chance, get on the phone, get on the email. Sean's waiting for your email.
Exactly.